Oh, well, can I use that one? I don't want to wear it.
Well, we can move it from there to this side.
Why am I wearing this? Why am I wearing this? For what am I wearing this?
It's not used.
I'm only going to read. No.
Yeah, that's the mic put in here. That goes to the kitchen.
That doesn't have volume.
That doesn't go in here. Oh.
That's for outside.
Yeah, that one is going here.
Oh, well, I'll try
That's why
it.
it's the
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Very good.
Je vais essayer si je n'ai pas sur place, non?
Okay, I really don't like this, so I won't be wearing that. That's good, it goes there. You'll be able to hear me here anyway. I'm just here, you know, so it's fine. Do you want to do any more chanting? Or? What is this? What is this?
The mindful.
So you've done all the bhajans in, a few of them here. So. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Jaya Shri Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Advaita Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Sankirtan ki jai. Jai Shri Jagannath Mahotsavam ki jai. Well, today is the festival of Jagannath Mishra. Okay. Hare Krishna. His beautiful divine son Vishvambara. His actual name is Vishvambara Mishra, Lord Chaitanya, but his nickname is Nimai because of the neem tree outside the house. But so today he made the feast, right? And everybody came from all around about the local areas and further afield to attend the feast in honour of the child. Okay, anybody know any more about it than that? It's in Chaitanya Charitamrita, of course. Was that read in the morning? I expect it was.
Yeah.
It was. Who was here?
Probably.
Yeah. Anyway, so I wanted to read something from the Srimad Bhagavatam, being the Bhagavat Purana. As you know, there's 18 Puranas, right? Some people say there are some other Puranas, sub-Puranas, but there's 18 main ones we know about. And they each have, they're all very different, even in length, So you think 18,000 verses is Srimad Bhagavatam, the Bhagavat Purana. But there's others which are more than that. I think the Shiva Purana is more like nearly up to 50,000 verses. A lot. But generally, the Srimad Bhagavatam is considered the Mahapurana. And it's said in the Vedas that all the Puranas, they can only shine in their glory as long as the Bhagavat Purana isn't present. So really, because it describes the glories of the Lord directly, pastimes and glories of the Lord, it really eclipses all other Puranas. But there's a lot of teaching in there also, in the form of philosophical discourses and stories from the ancient times, which give many philosophical points through the stories. But all is related to Krishna. So I'm going to read this. Now I'm just going to read this through. So try to open your mind, not just your ears. There's a difference between listening and hearing. Right? You can listen to something but not really get anything from it. You know, you can, like listening to a song on the radio. You might be partly listening with part of your mind, but you're not really hearing it. But hearing is something else. Yeah, Shravanam. So faith comes by hearing. So the more we can hear deeply and let that enter into our very being, even the cells of our body, and be pervaded by this Bhagavat Purana, which is considered non-different from Krishna, and the ripened fruits of the whole tree of Vedic knowledge. Vedic knowledge is like a tree, right? Seed is Om, and from Om comes Gayatri, yes? Lord Brahma, the first being, he heard the flute sound of Krishna, took the form of Gayatri when it entered his ear. Okay? Om Gayatri, from Gayatri comes Ved, because Gayatri is Veda Mata, she's the mother of the Vedas, so she gives birth to the Vedas. So Om, Gayatri, Ved, then the conclusion of all Vedic knowledge, Vedanta. The end of all Vedic knowledge is Vedanta, where the entire Veda is explained in small sutras, small little couplets, or so in other words, the bigger meaning of the Veda is compressed into small sutras, which are more easy to learn or remember. And the commentary on Vedanta Sutra is Srimad Bhagavatam. So if we think that Om is the seed, and then you have your tree, that will be the Vedas, right? And then you have your the branches and the fruits. The flowers come out originally from the seed. Then the flowers are coming. The flower is like Vedanta. So the flower, what is a flower? It's looking beautiful, has a nice perfume, but you can't normally, or at least normally, you can't eat the flower. You're not tasting it. It's looking beautiful, smelling nice, but the taste that comes with the fruit, yes, the fruit of the tree, that's the Bhagavat. So Galitam Phalam, the ripened fruit of the tree of Vedic knowledge. So that's why Lord Chaitanya was said to be, the ideal preacher of Srimad Bhagavatam, and took that as his main text. It said in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam that of the 10 elements which are important for your life, to put you in a spiritual direction in your life, and the 10 of them are given in an order. The very first one is called Agama, and Agama literally means the book. So that means to say, what is your guiding star in life? Yes? Is it TV Times? Is it Think and Grow Rich? Or is it the Bhagavat? So your life will take that direction, isn't it? So this is chapter 2 of the 4th canto. There was another text I wanted to read, but it's very philosophical. So I thought, to sustain the interest of ourselves, having a small attention span, I would rather read this. And this famous story about the relationship between Daksha and Lord Shiva. So I'll just begin. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Uttodayam Udhirayat Nastapraishu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavat Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhagavati Naistiki Kinkaroti Vachalam Bhangam Langayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Bande Shri Gurundi Natarinam Vidurvach Bhave Shilavatang Shrishte Dhakko Duhitta Vatsalaha Vidveshang Akarot Kashmat Anaditya Majang Shatim. Vidur inquired, why was Daksha, who was so affectionate towards his daughter, envious of Lord Shiva, who was the best among the gentle? Why did he neglect his daughter Sati, his own daughter Sati, was one of the names of the Shakti, right? Shakti of Shiva. Sati is one name. Which the word Sati comes from, committing Sati, right? Immolation, self-immolation by fire. Also Uma, Parvati, right? It means daughter of Parva, daughter of the Himalayas. Gauri and Kali and another aspect, different aspects. So her nature is can be very, like nature itself. We see a nice day like this. It's very gentle, you see, sun, blue sky, few little clouds, nice and warm, nice green grass, not too much breeze. Everything very gentle, very nice. See, then the other aspect, tsunami, hurricane, devastation. See, two aspects of the goddess of nature. The benign and it's not even malevolent, it's tempestuous. Right. So, Sati. So why did Sati was the daughter of Daksha and married to Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva, the spiritual master of the entire world, is free from enmity, is a peaceful personality, and is always satisfied in himself. He is the greatest among the demigods. How is it possible that Daksha could be inimical towards such an auspicious personality? So Daksha himself is a very big personality in the universe, right? He's directly coming from Lord Brahma, and he's the progenitor of mankind in the different planetary systems. So he has a big responsibility, but as is often the case, people with big positions of administration, they can become puffed up. So here he's saying about Lord Shiva, the glories of Lord Shiva. He's Charachara Guru, that's the word used here. It means the spiritual master of all beings, Chara, Achara, animate and inanimate. Also Bhutanath, the worshipable lord of the dull-headed, which can also be taken to mean subhuman species like ghosts and lower astral beings. Vaishnavanamyatar Shambhu, Lord Shiva is the greatest of all Vaishnavas. So he's also the spiritual master of Vaishnavas, highly learned Vaishnavas. He has a sampradaya called the Rudra Sampradaya. So even if such a great personality sometimes becomes angry, which he does, he shouldn't be taken, it shouldn't be made an object of envy, that he should be chastised, not at all. And so among the daughters of Prajapati Daksha, he had many daughters, but very prominent among them was Sati. Sati means chaste, very chaste. So Vidura is inquiring from the sage, the rishi Maitreya. My dear Maitreya, to part with one's life is very difficult. Would you kindly explain to me how such a son-in-law and father-in-law could quarrel so bitterly that the great goddess Sati could give up her life? The sage Maitreya said, in a former time, the leaders of the universal creation performed a great sacrifice in which all the great sages, philosophers, demigods and fire gods assembled with their followers. When Daksha, the leader of the Prajapatis, entered that assembly, his personal bodily lustre as bright as the effulgence of the sun, the entire assembly was illuminated, and all the assembled personalities became insignificant in his presence. Influenced by his personal bodily lustre, all the fire gods and other participants in that great assembly, with the exceptions of Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, gave up their own sitting places and stood in respect for Daksha. Daksha was adequately welcomed by the president of the great assembly, Lord Brahma. After offering Lord Brahma respect, Daksha, by the order of Brahma, properly took his seat. Before taking his seat, however, Daksha was very much offended to see Lord Shiva sitting and not showing him any respect. At that time, Daksha became greatly angry, and his eyes glowing, he began to speak very strongly against Lord Shiva. So, Kama Esha, Krodha Esha, Rajaguna, Samudbhava, Bhagavad Gita. The anger comes from Rajagun, an excess of the mode of passion. So he couldn't control himself. He became immediately angry and started blaspheming Lord Shiva. Why? We'll find out. All sages, Brahmins and fire gods present, please hear me with attention, for I speak about the manners of gentle persons. I do not speak out of ignorance or envy. Isn't it? People want to criticize others. They always manage to justify it. See? I'm not criticizing, because, it's just, I'm just telling things, as they are. They will all say that. But this goes back a long way. It's not just starting now. Their relationship, father-in-law, son-in-law, problems, that was going back from before. Shiva has spoiled the name and fame of the governors of the universe and has polluted the path of gentle manners. Because he is shameless, he does not know how to act. Who spoils name and fame is here Yashogna. Yash is one of the, we have the 6 qualities of opulences of Krishna, Bhagavan. And one of them is fame. It's called Yash. Like Yashoda, who's famous for being the mother of Krishna, Yashoda. So Yashogna means he destroys name and fame. But it can also be interpreted through the Sanskrit to mean one who is himself so famous that his fame kills all others. There's the opposite meaning. Lord Shiva. And he also used the word here, nirapatrap, which means, one meaning is who is stunted, who's very stunted, diminished in their intelligence. But another meaning is who it maintains people who have no other shelter. So in a way, indirectly, he was also praising Lord Shiva. That can be taken it. He has already accepted himself as my subordinate by marrying my daughter in the presence of fire and brahmanas. He has married my daughter, who is equal to Gayatri, and has pretended to be just like an honest person. He has eyes like a monkey's, yet he has married my daughter, whose eyes are just like those of a deer cub. Nevertheless, he did not stand up to receive me, nor did he think it fit to welcome me with sweet words. I had no desire to give my daughter to this person who has broken all rules of civility. Because of not observing the required rules and regulations, he's impure. But I was obliged to hand over my daughter to him, just as one teaches the messages of the Vedas to a Shudra. He lives in filthy places like crematoriums, and his companions are the ghosts and demons, naked like a madman, sometimes laughing and sometimes crying. He smears crematorium ashes all over his body. He doesn't bathe regularly, and he ornaments his body with a garland of skulls and bones. Therefore, only in name is he Shiv, or auspicious. Actually, he is the most mad and inauspicious creature. Thus, he is very dear to crazy beings in the gross mode of ignorance, and he is their leader. By his indicating that Lord Shiva associates with crazy people and lower types of beings because he's like them and he wants their association. But of course it's not that. He's to give them help and give them mercy.
And ontologically, why Shiva is compared with is pictured like this? Because we hear that Shiva and Vishnu is the same person.
Yes.
Vishnu doesn't touch material energy.
Yeah.
But Shiva does, but it's the same Vishnu. But why?
Yeah.
Is portrayed
We can explain that later. Let me tell the story. Okay, the ontological aspect of Shiva Tattva, very difficult to understand, yeah. But we go into that. On the request of Lord Brahma, I handed over my chaste daughter to him, although he's devoid of all cleanliness and his heart is filled with nasty things. So he's also indirectly criticizing Lord Brahma, who advised him to offer his daughter to Lord Shiva. So in his anger, that's what like anger is, right? The red curtain comes down and you do anything, say anything, you don't care. So the sage Maitreya continued, thus Daksha, seeing Lord Shiva sitting as if against him, washed his hands and mouth and cursed him in the following words. The demigods are eligible to share in the oblations of sacrifice, but Lord Shiva, who is the lowest of all the demigods, should not have a share. Maitreya continued, my dear Vidura, in spite of the request of all the members of the sacrificial assembly, Daksha, in great anger, cursed Lord Shiva and then left the assembly and went back to his home. Upon understanding that Lord Shiva had been cursed, Nandishvara, one of Lord Shiva's principal associates, became greatly angry. His eyes became red and he prepared to curse Daksha and all the Brahmins present there who had tolerated Daksha's cursing Shiva in harsh words. Anyone who has accepted Daksha as the most important personality and neglected Lord Shiva because of envy is less intelligent and because of seeing in duality will be bereft of transcendental knowledge. So that was his first curse. They'll become dull and ignorant, like an animal. Because that's also, if he wasn't opposing Daksha's behavior, that's like supporting it, right? It's a sin of omission. You don't have to actively do something, but if such a thing is being done and you don't give opposition to that, then that's the offence, equal offence. Like I think it was Thomas Burke, a politician. He said, "The greatest evil in the world is done when, in the face of true evil, good men do nothing." Yeah, pretentiously religious householder life in which one is attracted to material happiness and thus also attracted to the superficial explanation of the Vedas, robs one of all intelligence and attaches one to fruitive activities as all in all. So Vedic, the teachings of the Vedas, ritualistic sacrifices for material ends, material elevation, is not at all Krishna consciousness. Just because something on the outside has the look of Vedic about it, you think, oh, that's very good, we should do that. No, not at all. Devotional service is what we do. Shravanam, Kirtanam, right? And these practices. If it is helpful and supportive of that, then yes, we can accept it, but otherwise not. Daksha has accepted the body as all in all. Therefore, since he has forgotten the Vishnupad, or Vishnu Gati, and is attached to sex life only, within a short time he will have the face of a goat. Because goats are supposed to be very lusty, right? Symbol of the devil. Goat of Mendes. Yeah. So he's neglected the path of Vishnu, Vishnu Gati, the way of Vishnu, Sharanagati, the way of surrender. So those who have become as dull as matter by cultivating materialistic education and intelligence are nesciently involved in fruitive activities. Such men have purposely insulted Lord Shiva. May they continue in the cycle of repeated birth and death. So these are 3 curses altogether which he lobbed out there, Nandishvara. May those who are envious of Lord Shiva, being attracted by the flowery language of the enchanting Vedic promises, and who have thus become dull, always remain attached to fruitive activities. Those Brahmins take to education, austerity and vows only for the purpose of maintaining the body. They shall be devoid of discrimination between what to eat and what not to eat. They will acquire money, begging from door to door, simply for the satisfaction of the body. When all the hereditary Brahmins were thus cursed by Nandishvara, the sage Bhrigu, as a reaction, condemned the followers of Lord Shiva with this very strong Brahminical curse. So cursing, counter-cursing. Bhrigu Muni, right? He's a direct son born from the mind of Lord Brahma. So very powerful sage. It's mentioned in all the different texts, in different connections. And it said that the curse of a Brahmin is insurmountable. He said, one who takes a vow to satisfy Lord Shiva or who follows such principles will certainly become an atheist and be diverted from transcendental scriptural injunctions. That's indirect, it's a reference to Mayavad, when Lord Shiva appeared as Shankaracharya and gave the so-called monistic philosophy, the oneness philosophy, which is considered atheistic, considered as very similar or non-different from the conclusion of Buddhism, Nirvana. So Nirvana or Brahma Nirvishesh are similar. There's no individual existence of consciousness, manifestation of consciousness. Those who vow to worship Lord Shiva are so foolish that they imitate him by keeping long hair on their heads. When initiated into worship of Lord Shiva, they prefer to live on wine, flesh, and other such things. Bhrigu Muni continued, since you blaspheme the Vedas and the Brahmanas, who are followers of the Vedic principles, it's understood that you've already taken shelter of the doctrine of atheism. So I won't go through all these curses because it goes on for a while. But an interesting point was then one time Lord Chaitanya, as it's that's our festival at the moment, but he was travelling in South India and he used to visit the temples of Lord Shiva. And he went to one Shiva temple, and after the arti and everything, they had the prasad, Shiv prasad, and he took that prasad, and one devotee, a follower of him, was shocked. And he said, oh, but Master, in the Vedas, it said we shouldn't take the prasad of demigods, because if you do that, then the curse of Bhrigu Muni will be activated in your life, and you'll, as this curse he gave, things, you'll become devoid of knowledge and so forth. But Lord Chaitanya explained, if you're accepting Lord Shiva as a demigod and taking the prasad that way, yes, that's one thing. But if you're accepting him, seeing him as a Maha Vaishnava, and then you're taking Vaishnava prasad, a Maha prasad. So that was the adjustment. So the sage Maitreya said, when such cursing and counter-cursing was going on between Lord Shiva's followers and the parties of Daksha and Bhrigu, Lord Shiva became very morose. Not saying anything, he left the arena of the sacrifice, followed by his disciples. So this is here is showing the proper behavior of a Vaishnava. He just left. He didn't get involved in the arguments going on. And he just thought, this is terrible, these people who, showing by their behavior that they're not having any interest in spiritual life, but just, sort of defending a certain point of view. But he himself sees everyone as equal in that way, because he's a Vaishnava, Pandita Samadarshana. So he left, because if he would leave, then his followers would leave with him, and their cursing thing would stop. The sage Maitreya continued, O Vidura, all the progenitors of the universal population thus executed a sacrifice for thousands of years, for sacrifice is the best way to worship the Supreme Lord Hari, the personality of Godhead. So then it describes these. Do we have to do the arti at 1, is it? Or do you have any extra time? A little bit?
A little bit later.
Well, like 1:15 or something?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. In this manner, that tension between the father-in-law and son-in-law, Daksha and Lord Shiva, continued for a considerably long period. When Lord Brahma appointed Daksha the chief of all the Prajapatis, the progenitors of population, Daksha became very much puffed up. So he began performing sacrifices, one after another, right? Because that's what Brahmins do, right? They do sacrifices. The Vajapaya, the Brahaspati Sava.
Maharaj, can you explain, so people don't know about sacrifices and yagyas and fires, can you explain a little bit more about
Can you?
what's the meaning of sacrifice?
You tell me, really, that's what they do,
Because it's,
Yagya.
it's different type of sacrifices, so people offer like the Vaishnava,
Yeah.
fruits, incense, flowers, maybe perfume, sandalwood, and other, maybe they can sacrifice also animals to the gods.
Yes, different types of sacrifices. Well, these were Vedic, they weren't doing animal sacrifices here. They were, but the point is he became puffed up because he thought he has the backing of Lord Brahma, so nobody can touch him. And so this last one he did was a big Maha Yagya, the Brihaspati Sava, okay? So that was the combination of all different sacrifices. So while this was being performed, everybody from all around the universe, they went there. Many Brahma Rishis, great sages, ancestral demigods and other demigods and their wives, all very nicely decorated, attended from different parts of the universe. The chaste lady Sati, the daughter of Daksha, heard the heavenly denizens flying in the sky conversing about the great sacrifice being performed by her father. When she saw that from all directions the beautiful wives of the heavenly denizens, their eyes very beautifully glittering, were near her residence and were going to the sacrifice dressed in fine clothing and ornamented with earrings and necklaces with lockets, she approached her husband, the master of the Bhutas, in great anxiety and spoke as follows. My dear Lord Shiva, your father-in-law is now executing great sacrifices, and all the demigods, having been invited by him, are going there. If you desire, we may also go. So he's very politely approaching him, not saying, can I go, or I want to go, but if we go, that would be very good. I think that all my sisters must have gone to this great sacrificial ceremony with their husbands, just to see their relatives. I also desire to decorate myself with the ornaments given to me by my father, and go there with you to participate in that assembly. So obviously a yajna the central point is the yajna being performed, but it's also a great social event, isn't it? It's like people come here to this temple, the main thing is the worship of the Lord, the yajna, but it's also a social gathering. People meet each other, friends, family, like that. So she was thinking like that. My sisters, my mother's sisters, and their husbands, and other affectionate relatives must be assembled there. So if I go, I shall be able to see them, and I shall be able to see the flapping flags and the performance of the sacrifice by the great sages. For these reasons, my dear husband, I am very much anxious to go. So she's putting it all together. I see the flapping flags. Oh, and the sacrifice also. It'd be lovely. This manifested cosmos is a wonderful creation of the interaction of the three modes, the external energy of the Supreme Lord. This truth is fully known to you, but I am but a poor woman, and as you know, I am not conversant with the truth. Therefore, I wish to see my birthplace once more. There's a very good purports here, which I can't read them all, but about the mentioning about the masculine and feminine natures, what is their relation, how they're different, what are their different qualities, and so forth, so on. But, O never born, O blue-throated one, not only my relatives, but also other women dressed in nice clothes and decorated with ornaments are going there with their husbands and friends. Just see how their flocks of white airplanes have made the entire sky very beautiful. She addresses Lord Shiva as Abhav, one who is never born, the unborn. Although he appeared from the mind, between the eyes of Lord Brahma, Rudra. And Brahma himself is called Swayambhu. He's not born of any human being, but directly from Lord Vishnu. Yeah. O best of the demigods, how can the body of a daughter remain undisturbed when she hears that some festive event is taking place in her father's house? Even though you may be considering that I've not been invited, there's no harm if one goes to the house of one's friend, husband, spiritual master or father without invitation. O immortal Shiva, please be kind towards me and fulfill my desire. You've accepted me as half of your body, therefore please show kindness towards me and accept my request. The great sage Maitreya said, Lord Shiva, the deliverer of the hill Kailash, having thus been addressed by his dear wife, replied smilingly, although at the same time he remembered the malicious, heart-piercing speeches delivered by Daksha before the guardians of the universal affairs. The great Lord replied, My dear, beautiful wife, you have said that one may go to a friend's house without being invited, and this is true, provided such a friend does not find fault with the guest because of bodily identification and thereby becomes angry towards him. Although the 6 qualities, education, austerity, wealth, beauty, youth, and heritage, are for the highly elevated, one who is proud of possessing them becomes blind, and thus he loses his good sense and cannot appreciate the glories of great personalities. One should not go to anyone's house, even on the consideration of his being a relative or a friend. when the man is disturbed in his mind and looks upon the guest with raised eyebrows and angry eyes. If one is hurt by the arrows of an enemy, one is not as aggrieved as when cut by the unkind words of a relative. For such grief continues to rend one's heart day and night. My dear white-complexioned wife, it is clear that of the many daughters of Daksha, you are the pet, yet you will not be honoured at his house because of your being my wife. Rather, you'll be sorry that you are connected with me. One who is conducted by false ego and thus always distressed, both mentally and sensually, cannot tolerate the opulence of self-realized persons. Being unable to rise to the standard of self-realization, he envies such persons as much as demons envy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. My dear young wife, certainly friends and relatives offer mutual greetings by standing up, welcoming one another and offering obeisances. But those who are elevated to the transcendental platform, being intelligent, offer such respects to the Supersoul, who is sitting within the body, not to the person who identifies with the body. I am always engaged in offering obeisances to Lord Vasudeva in pure Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is always pure consciousness, in which the Supreme Personality of Godhead, known as Vasudeva, is revealed without any covering. Therefore you should not see your father, although he is the giver of your body, because he and his followers are envious of me. Because of his envy, O most worshipful one, he has insulted me with cruel words, although I am innocent. In spite of this instruction, if you decide to go, neglecting my words, the future will not be good for you. You are most respectable, and when you are insulted by your relative, this insult will immediately be equal to death. The sage Maitreya said, Lord Shiva was silent after speaking to Sati, seeing her between decisions. Sati was very much anxious to see her relatives at her father's house, but at the same time she was afraid of Lord Shiva's warning. Her mind unsettled, she moved in and out of the room as a swing moves this way and that. Sati felt very sorry at being forbidden to go and see her relatives at her father's house, and due to affection for them, tears fell from her eyes. Shaking and very much afflicted, she looked at her uncommon husband, Lord Shiva, as if she were going to blast him with her vision. Thereafter, Sati left her husband, Lord Shiva, who had given her half his body due to affection. Breathing very heavily because of anger and bereavement, she went to the house of her father. This less intelligent act was due to her being a weak woman. When they saw Sati leaving alone very rapidly, thousands of Lord Shiva's disciples, headed by Maniman and Madha, quickly followed her with his bull Nandi in front and accompanied by the Yakshas. The Yakshas are a race, a particular race, out of the many races, 400,000 races, but they're particularly, they have mystic cities. Sometimes Srila Prabhupada compares them with the Tibetan race. We know they had definitely a shamanic religion before Buddhism came to Tibet. Then it got mixed in. But the Yakshas particularly, they're very, very wealthy, and they like to deal with jewels and gold and so forth. So, the disciples of Lord Shiva arranged for Sati to be seated on the back of a bull and gave her the bird which was her pet. They bore a lotus flower, a mirror, and all such paraphernalia for her enjoyment, and covered her with a great canopy. Followed by a singing party with drums, conch shells and bugles, the entire procession was as pompous as a royal parade. She then reached her father's house where the sacrifice was being performed, and entered the arena where everyone was chanting the Vedic hymns. The great sages, brahmanas and demigods were all assembled there, and there were many sacrificial animals, as well as pots made of clay, stone, gold, grass and skin, which were all requisite for the sacrifice. When Sati with her followers reached the arena, because all the people assembled were afraid of Daksha, none of them received her well. No one welcomed her, but her mother and sisters, who with tears in their eyes and with glad faces welcomed her and talked with her very pleasingly. Although she was received by her sisters and mother, she did not reply to their words of reception, and although she was offered a seat and presents, she did not accept anything, for her father neither talked with her nor welcomed her by asking about her welfare. It's appalling behaviour by Daksha, yeah? Present in the arena of sacrifice, Sati saw that there were no oblations for her husband, Lord Shiva. Next, she realized that not only had her father failed to invite Lord Shiva, but when he saw Lord Shiva's exalted wife, Daksha did not receive her either. Thus she became greatly angry, so much so that she looked at her father as if she were going to burn him with her eyes. The followers of Lord Shiva, the ghosts, were ready to injure or kill Daksha, but Sati stopped them by her order. She was very angry and sorrowful, and in that mood she began to condemn the process of sacrificial fruitive activities and persons who are very proud of such unnecessary and troublesome sacrifices. She especially condemned her father, speaking against him in the presence of all. The Blessed Goddess said, "Lord Shiva is the most beloved of all living entities. He has no rival. No one is very dear to him, and no one is his enemy. No one but you could be envious of such a universal being who is free from all enmity. Twice born Daksha, a man like you can simply find faults in the qualities of others. Lord Shiva, however, not only finds no faults with others' qualities, but if someone has a little good quality, he magnifies it greatly. Unfortunately, you have found fault with such a great soul. It is not wonderful for persons who have accepted the transient material body as the self to engage always in deriding great souls. Such envy on the part of materialistic persons is very good, because that is the way they fall down. They are diminished by the dust of the feet of great personalities." Sati continued, "My dear father, you are committing the greatest offence by envying Lord Shiva, whose very name, consisting of two syllables, Shi and Va, purifies one of all sinful activities. His order is never neglected. Lord Shiva is always pure, and no one but you envies him. You are envious of Lord Shiva, who is the friend of all living entities within the three worlds. For the common man, he fulfills all desires, and because of their engagement in thinking of his lotus feet, he also blesses higher personalities who are seeking after Brahmanand, transcendental bliss. Do you think that greater, more respectable personalities than you, such as Lord Brahma, do not know this inauspicious person who goes under the name of Lord Shiva? He associates with the demons in the crematorium. His locks of hair are scattered all over his body. He is garlanded with human skulls and smeared with ashes. But in spite of all these inauspicious qualities, great personalities like Brahma honour him by accepting the flowers offered to his lotus feet and placing them with great respect on their heads. If one hears an irresponsible person blaspheme the master and controller of religion, one should block his ears and go away, if unable to punish him. But if one is able to kill, then one should by force cut out the blasphemer's tongue and kill the offender, and after that one should give up his own life. Therefore, I shall no longer bear this unworthy body which has been received from you, who have blasphemed Lord Shiva. If someone has taken food which is poisonous, the best treatment is to vomit. It is better to execute one's own occupational duty than to criticize others. Elevated transcendentalists may sometimes forego the rules and regulations of the Vedas, since they do not need to follow them, just as the demigods travel in space, whereas ordinary men travel on the surface of the earth. So she goes on, several verses here, glorifying the qualities of great souls, like Lord Shiva. You are an offender at the lotus feet of Lord Shiva, and unfortunately I have a body produced from yours. I am very much ashamed of our bodily relationship, and I condemn myself because my body is contaminated by a relationship with a person who is an offender at the lotus feet of the greatest personality. Because of our family relationship, when Lord Shiva addresses me as Dakshayani, I at once become morose, and my jolliness and my smile at once disappear. I feel very much sorry that my body, which is just like a bag, has been produced by you. I shall therefore give it up. Maitreya, the sage, told Vidura, O annihilator of enemies, while thus speaking to her father in the arena of sacrifice, Sati sat down on the ground and faced north. Dressed in saffron garments, she sanctified herself with water and closed her eyes to absorb herself in the process of mystic yoga. First of all, she sat in the required sitting posture, and then she carried the life air upwards and placed it in the position of equilibrium near the navel. Then she raised her life air, mixed with intelligence, to the heart, and then gradually toward the pulmonary passage, and from there to between her eyebrows. Thus, in order to give up her body, which had been so respectfully and affectionately seated on the lap of Lord Shiva, who is worshipped by the great sages and saints, Sati, due to anger towards her father, began to meditate on the fiery air within the body. Sati concentrated all her meditation on the holy lotus feet of her husband, Lord Shiva, who is the supreme spiritual master of all the worlds. Thus she became completely cleansed of all taints of sin and quit her body in a blazing fire by meditation on the fiery elements. When Sati annihilated her body in anger, there was a tumultuous roar all over the universe. Why had Sati, the wife of the most respectable demigod, Lord Shiva, quit her body in such a manner? It was astonishing that Daksha, who was Prajapati, the maintainer of all living entities, was so disrespectful to his own daughter Sati, who was not only chaste, but was also a great soul, that she gave up her body because of his neglect. Daksha, who is so hard-hearted that he is unworthy to be a Brahmana, will gain extensive ill fame because of his offences to his daughter, because of not having prevented her death, and because of his great envy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that sometimes the reputation continues on to perpetuity. Here, Daksha, as soon as anybody thinks of Daksha, they wouldn't necessarily think of all the great things he'd done, progeniting the universe and doing so many yajnas and so on. But they think, oh yeah, he's the one who offended Lord Shiva. So that immediately, same with like Judas Iscariot, who supposedly betrayed Jesus to the, the other side. But there's a lot behind that we don't know. But perhaps he was chosen by Christ to do that because being a very close and intimate disciple, that was a very heavy duty he was given, that only he could do that. We don't know how this story has come out. Even Guru Maharaj mentioned in one book, I think it's Sri Guru and His Grace, he said when Jesus was going on the way to be crucified, and he caught the eye of Judas, and he said the look he gave to Judas then, Judas became so upset that he hanged himself. That's the version given in the Gospels. But there are other versions in the Apocrypha that are different. But anyway, this was Guru Maharaj's realization about the situation. But the look he gave there to Judas wasn't like you BF, you've betrayed me and caused this terrible thing, but it was thank you so much for doing this service through which the sins of the people can be redeemed. Yes? So it was a look of love and thanks, and he couldn't take it, so he went and committed suicide. Whether that's historically accurate or not, but that was a realization of Guru Maharaj, so I'm just giving you that to consider. So same here with Daksha, same with Duryodhana as well. He had many things going for him, but just that one thing that he was envious, had this envy of the Pandavas. While people were talking among themselves about the wonderful voluntary death of Sati, the attendants who had come with her readied themselves to kill Daksha with their weapons. They came forward forcibly, but Bhrigu Muni saw the danger and, offering oblations to the southern side of the sacrificial fire, immediately uttered mantric hymns from the Yajurved, by which the destroyers of yogic performances could be killed immediately. Yeah, it said there are mantras that are so powerful that if you would say it with the right intonation, without making any mistake, the heart stops. The person's heart just stops. They just drop dead, When Bhrigu Muni offered oblations in the fire, immediately many thousands of demigods named Ribus became manifested. All of them were powerful, having achieved strength from Soma, the moon. So the moon is very powerful, right? Can you imagine the power, magnetic power of the moon to pull the tides and so forth? It's subtle power, so. When the Ribu demigods attacked the ghosts and Guyakas with half-burned fuel from the Yagya fire, all these attendants of Sati fled in different directions and disappeared. This was possible simply because of Brahma Tejas, Brahminical power. Maitreya said, when Lord Shiva heard from Narad that Sati, his wife, was now dead because of Prajapati Daksha's insult to her, and that his soldiers had been driven away by the Ribu demigods, he became greatly angry. He pressed his lips with his teeth and immediately snatched from his head a strand of hair which blazed like electricity or fire. He stood up at once, laughing like a madman, and dashed the hair to the ground. A fearful black demon as high as the sky and as bright as 3 suns combined was thereby created, his teeth very fearful, and the hairs on his head like burning fire. He had thousands of arms equipped with various weapons, and he was garlanded with the heads of men. When that gigantic demon asked with folded hands, "What shall I do, my lord?" Lord Shiva, who is known as Bhutanath, directly ordered, "Because you are born from my body, you are the chief of all my associates. Therefore, kill Daksha and his soldiers at the sacrifice." My dear Vidura, that black person was the personified anger of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he was prepared to execute the orders of Lord Shiva. Thus, considering himself capable of coping with any power offered against him, he circumambulated Lord Shiva. Then many other soldiers of Lord Shiva followed the fierce personality in a tumultuous uproar. He carried a great trident, fearful enough to kill even death, and on his legs he wore bangles which seemed to roar. At that time, all the persons assembled in the sacrificial arena, the priest, the chief of the sacrificial performance, and the Brahmins and their wives, wondered where the darkness was coming from. Later they could understand that it was a dust storm, and all of them were full of anxiety. Conjecturing about this, they said, "There's no wind blowing and no cows are passing, nor is it possible that this dust storm could be raised by plunderers. For there is the strong king Barhi, who would punish them. Where is this dust storm blowing from? Is the dissolution of the planet now to occur?" Prasuti, the wife of Daksha, along with the other women assembled, became very anxious and said, This danger has been created by Daksha because of the death of Sati, who, even though completely innocent, quit her body as her sisters looked on. At the time of dissolution, Lord Shiva's hair is scattered, and he pierces the rulers of the different directions with his trident. He laughs and dances proudly, scattering their hands like flags, as thunder scatters the clouds all over the world. The gigantic black man bared his fearful teeth. By the movements of his brows he scattered the luminaries all over the sky, and he covered them with his strong piercing effulgence. Because of the misbehaviour of Daksha, even Lord Brahma, Daksha's father, could not have been saved from this great exhibition of anger. While all the people talked among themselves, Daksha saw dangerous omens from all sides, from the earth and from the sky. My dear Vidura, all the followers of Lord Shiva surrounded the arena of sacrifice. They were of short stature and were equipped with various kinds of weapons. Their bodies appeared to be like those of sharks, blackish and yellowish. They ran all around the sacrificial arena and thus began to create disturbances. Some pulled down the pillars which were supporting the pandal. Some of them entered the female quarters. Some began destroying the sacrificial arena, and some entered the kitchens and the residential quarters. They broke all the pots made for use in the sacrifice, and some of them began to extinguish the sacrificial fire. Some tore down the boundary line of the arena, and some passed urine on the arena. Some blocked the way of the fleeing sages, some threatened the women assembled there, and some arrested the demigods who were fleeing the pandal. Maniman, one of the followers of Lord Shiva, arrested Bhrigu Muni, and Virabhadra, the black demon, arrested Prajapati Daksha. Another follower, who was named Chandesha, arrested Pusha. Nandishvara arrested the demigod Bhaga. There was a continuous shower of stones, and all the priests and other members assembled at the sacrifice were put into immense misery. For fear of their lives, they dispersed in different directions. Virabhadra tore off the moustache of Bhrigu, who was offering the sacrificial oblations with his hands in the fire. Virabhadra immediately caught Bhaga, who had been moving his eyebrows during Bhrigu's cursing of Lord Shiva, and out of great anger thrust him to the ground and forcibly put out his eyes. That means he was moving his eyes like favourably. Just see. You're all being cursed, So, just as Baladev knocked out the teeth of Dantavakra, the king of Kalinga, during the gambling match at the marriage ceremony of Aniruddha, Virabhadra knocked out the teeth of both Daksha, who had shown them while cursing Lord Shiva, and Pusha, who by smiling sympathetically had also shown his teeth. Then Virabhadra, the giant-like personality, sat on the chest of Daksha and tried to separate his head from his body with sharp weapons, but was unsuccessful. He tried to cut the head of Daksha with hymns as well as weapons, but still it was hard to cut even the surface of the skin of Daksha's head. Thus Virabhadra was exceedingly bewildered. It's coming to the end of the chapter, there are 2 verses. Then Virabhadra saw the wooden device in the sacrificial arena by which the animals were to have been killed. He took the opportunity of this facility to behead Daksha. Upon seeing the action of Virabhadra, the party of Lord Shiva was pleased and cried out joyfully, and all the bhutas, ghosts and demons that had come made a tumultuous sound. On the other hand, the Brahmins in charge of the sacrifice cried out in grief at the death of Daksha. Virabhadra then took the head and with great anger threw it into the southern side of the sacrificial fire, offering it as an oblation. In this way the followers of Lord Shiva devastated all the arrangements for sacrifice. After setting fire to the whole arena, they departed for their master's abode, Kailash. Jai Mahadev Shiv Ki Jai. Jai Shri Krishna. Well, then, of course, it's not the end of the story. It continues many other things, but
The thing about his head, so he got beheaded, and then they put a goat's head.
Yeah, that happens later, yeah.
Cherry on top, right?
It's rather embarrassing, yeah. So, yeah, Arti. So Krishna consciousness, Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur, so Krishna consciousness means love and rupture. So yes, of course, beauty, sweetness, charm, ecstasy, joy, and all the wonderful things of Vrindavan. But in our conditioned world, in our practicing state, many things we have to go through, sometimes good and bad. But if we keep our faith firm, we'll come through unscathed, I believe. So,
Srila Govinda Maharaj used to say, "Oh, I'm the son of Lord Shiva." Or when he used to come here, he used to say, "I'm the son of Lord Shiva," because my mother always prayed to Lord Shiva when he wasn't there. So he said, "I'm Lord Shiva's son."
Much affection to
Very humble, very humble.
Time for
They are Krishna.
like loudly.
I think you meet him.
Yeah?
Yeah. He was like this, but now he was so quick. Fast. Yeah. He's training every day. Training every day.
You're getting squashed. Why don't you come out and wait? Otherwise you'll be crushed.
Jaya Sapai Kai Sisi Kurang.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sati Gaura Bhakta Gadadhara Shiva Sati Gaura Bhakta Mati Mandana Bhajo Bhagavana
Shila Bhakti Nirmala Chaya Maharaj ki Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Sri Acharya Vrinda ki Om Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Parvati Acharya Bharya Sotra Sati Shishima Shila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj ki Om Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Parvati Acharya Bharya Sotra Sati Shishima Shila Bhakti Raka Sita Dev Goswami Maharaj ki Om Bhagavan Sila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Om Vishnupad Sila Gaur Kishoras Babaji Maharaj ki Om Vishnupad Sila Sachidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki Om Vishnupad Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Sila Jagannath Babaji Maharaj ki Sri Rupa Nuga Gaur Varga ki Namacharya Sila Haridas Thakur ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Premskoji Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Kadadara Sri Vasadi Sri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki Jaya Sri Rupa Sita Matan Bhatta Raghunath Sri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunath Sat Goswami Prabhu ki Sila Baladev Vidya Bhushan ki Sila Vishwanath Chakravarti Prabhu ki Sri Narottam Shamananda Srinivasacharya Prabhu ki Sila Vrindavan Das Thakur ki Sila Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami Maharaj ki Om Vishnupad Krishna Parena Sila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Sapishada Sri Nityananda Prabhu ki Sapishada Sri Mama Prabhu ki Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Kiri Govardhan ki Sudha Bhakti Krishna Vinyasa Sini Shimnadev ki Bhakti Pavar Kalad Maharaj ki Bhakti Devi Vrinda Devi Tulasi Maharani ki Ganga Yamuna Jiu ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki Sri Navadvip Dham ki Sri Mayapur Dham ki Sri Vrindavan Dham ki Sri Purushottam Dham ki Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Jai Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Mat ki Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Mat East London Chapter ki Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Mat West London Chapter ki Samata Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki Samata Vaishnava Mandala ki Sri Jagannath Mishra Ram Beauty Festival ki Harinam Sankirtan ki Nitai Gaur Premanande.
Con Naraya. Mira, con Naraya fue que hizo el traje de la letra. Sashi. Mira qué lindo. ¿Verdad? Mira, le hizo el turbante y todo, muy romántico. ¿Viste? Ya salen del templo. Sí, está bonito. Te caíste, se cayó la llamada. Mira. Muéstrale a mi papá antes de que cierren el altar. Muéstrale antes de que cierren. Saraswati está en la cocina. Mira, papá. Que ya lo van a cerrar. Okay.
Is mama?
Yes. ¿Viste a Sachi? Mira, my dad. ¿Vieron a Sachi, Didi? Te está saludando. No sé si la ves. I think the internet is a little bit delayed there. You know, whatever you can hear, they see it there a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Do they have the Wi-Fi?
They have Wi-Fi basically.
¿Like acá lo tienes? Es que hay otro.
No, I think it's the internet.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. No, the internet. I mean, ¿viste?
I'll go and sit down and then before.
A tomar allá. Mira, papá, él es el artista que hizo el traje de la bailada. Con Naraya.